Hello. This video is on Old English literature and Middle English literature. Let us talk about the beginnings of Britain. The oldest inhabitants of Britain were the Celts. They came from somewhere in the continent and they established their society in Britain. It was a very tribal society, dominated by kinship relations. They had their own Celtic languages, Celtic pagan religion. And remember Julius Caesar? Julius Caesar, 10 years before his death, visited Britain. And he saw, wow, this is a nice place. He might have wanted to come and conquer the Celts, but he died too soon. After Caesar's death, many years later, the Romans invaded the Celts. The Romans invaded Britain. The Romans were very militaristic people, powerful people. It was the time of the Roman Empire and the beginning of the ADs. The Romans established good infrastructure there, built roads, buildings. Everything was more systematized in Roman Britain. The Celts were happy in the Roman rule, but they were powerless. And it was at the beginning of the 5th century AD that the Romans all left Britain and went back to Rome. You know why? Because Rome itself was attacked by barbarians. You know, by this time, Roman Empire had flourished so much that the Roman generals became corrupt. They were living a life of pleasure and luxury without caring for military conquest anymore. This was the opportune moment for the barbarians to attack Rome, and all the Romans left Britain. This story is told by Edward Gibbon in Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. Wait. Roman Empire was not only one Roman Empire, it was two. The Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. The Western Roman Empire fell in the beginning of the 5th century, and the Eastern Roman Empire flourished for 1000 years more. That is the Byzantine Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire had its capital at Byzantium, and it fell to the Ottoman Turks in the 15th century, 1453. Now, the Celts are left without a ruler. All the Romans left England, more or less. And barbarians began to attack Britain now. Not only Rome, other Picts, Scots and other such tribes began to attack the Celts. Oh, the Celts could not defend themselves. One of their warlords, Vortigern, went and invited mercenary tribes to come and protect them. From the continent, two leaders, Hengist and Horsa, they brought their mercenary troops and came and defended the Celts. Who are these Hengist and Horsa? They are the earliest Anglo-Saxons. Angles, Saxons and Jutes, 3 tribes, came to protect the Celts. They understood, wow, what a nice island. Let us settle down here. They stayed in England. The Anglo-Saxon period started in the 8th to 5th century AD. And the Anglo-Saxon period is the Old English period. We always talk about the beginning of English literature from the Old English period. Array, English, the language, the culture, is itself that of the Angles, Saxons and Jutes. Old English language, mind you, was pretty difficult. It was synthetic and inflectional. That means the whole word will change according to grammar functions. And also, it was full of Germanic words, difficult words. There were 4 major dialects in Old English: Northumbrian, Mercian, West Saxon and Kentish, out of which the West Saxon dialect was the most important. And Old English had various genres that were both religious as well as secular. Hagiography, for example, was an important genre. Epic was important. We have the oldest text and epic in English, Beowulf. Both poetry and prose were written in Old English. And both Christian and secular themes were employed. Most of what we know about Old English literature has come to us from Venerable Bede and some other historians. The oldest writer that we know in Old English period is Caedmon. He is called the father of Old English. Caedmon, Cynewulf, sometimes he is pronounced Cynewulf, Aelfric, Venerable Bede, all very important authors of Old English period. Old English literature was mostly oral and has come down to us in 4 manuscripts. The Junius manuscript, the Exeter book, the Vercelli book and Novel Codex. These are the 4 manuscripts. Novel Codex is also called Cotton Vitellius manuscript, that is the Beowulf manuscript. Old English poetry was, because it's oral, it was full of certain unique features. Old English poetry is bold and strong. When you speak, you have to use language in a certain way for effect. When I speak, I use my voice in a certain way. I use stress and intonation. I use gestures, performance. These are all ways in which you use oral language effectively. Same things are there in oral poetry. Old English poetry is bold and strong, mournful and elegiac and full of emotions. Because when you show emotions, people will feel attracted, they will want to listen to you. Old English literature, Old English poetry especially, is about heroes, their achievements, but it also was about the futility of human life. Old English literature understood, Old English poets understood that human beings are not all powerful. The greatness of the human being, the brilliance of human life actually is a feature of Renaissance. That is humanism, starting from 14th, 15th centuries. Old English literature is not humanistic. Old English literature is about the futility of human life. Whatever achievements you have in this world will end with death. That is why they sing the glory of the heroes also. And Old English literature used certain linguistic features like alliteration. Alliteration is repetition of consonant sounds. They also employed features like kenning. Kenning is a descriptive phrase, an elaborate phrase. Instead of saying one word, you describe the thing that you are saying. All these features are found in the oldest epic, Beowulf. Epic in 2 parts. Beowulf is a Geatish hero. Geats, that is the tribe. This is a story set in Scandinavia. Where is Scandinavia? North. If this is England, Scandinavia is here. Scandinavia, Norway, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, major countries. And Beowulf is a Scandinavian story. In the first part of Beowulf, Beowulf is a brave warrior. He is helping the Danish king Hrothgar. The palace of Hrothgar is called Herot. And there is a monster Grendel who is troubling the people of the country. Beowulf is injuring Grendel. Grendel's mother, a bloody, revengeful monster. She comes for revenge. Beowulf kills Grendel and his mother. Like in our ancient stories of other parts of the world. In India, for example, we have so many ancient stories of heroes like this, legends and myths. This is also a story that shows a great warrior, his achievements in life, ultimately his death, good and evil fighting. There are so many values of life that are taught by these epics. And then the second part of Beowulf, you are wondering what is that about? In the second part of Beowulf, Beowulf is the king of the Geats. And a sea monster is troubling the country right now. Beowulf kills the sea dragon. Or he wounds the dragon, but he is wounded himself. Both die. Like Hamlet and Laertes kill each other. You know, there is an underlying pattern for all these stories, I suppose. The hero kills the villain, but the villain also wounds the hero and both of them die. But there's a big difference between the death of the villain and the death of the hero. When Beowulf dies, the entire community mourns his death. There is a Geatish woman, a group of women actually, who mourn the death of Beowulf. It was a ritual, you know, like in Mahashweta Devi's Rudali. Women who were meant to cry and mourn the death of great heroes. There's a lot of community feeling at the ending of Beowulf. It's a lot of insightful commentary about human life, its futility, what is enduring in human life, how a hero represents not an individual but an entire community, how memory leads to a community's history. And the ending is a very beautiful part of the epic. There has been a lot of critical commentary on it. Beowulf was perhaps a model for many other works of Old English literature. I told you already, the father of Old English literature was Caedmon. You will think, wow, he's the father of Old English literature. He must have written a lot of works. That is why he is called the father. Not at all. He has written only one 9-lined poem. Bas, finished. Probably he wrote more, we don't know for sure. Caedmon's poem is called Caedmon's Hymn. There are other poems attributed to him or probably inspired by him that is called the Caedmonian school. Like that, there is a Cynewulfian school modeled on Cynewulf. These authors laid the earliest traditions of Old English literature. There were scholars, especially Cynewulf, how to look at life. What is the philosophy of life? That is what you see in them. Aelfric wrote homilies. Wulfstan wrote Sermon of the Wolf. All important writers. They sometimes commented on history and society. They talked about sin and the importance of devotion to God. And Venerable Bede wrote Ecclesiastical History of the English Race. Very important historical document. Talk about history, you can't avoid talking about Alfred, King Alfred. King Alfred wrote chronicles, Anglo-Saxon chronicles. He recorded the events of Anglo-Saxon periods. Not personally, of course. He must have employed people to do it. He's a king after all. And there are lots of legends also about him. There's a whole lot of literature and stories associated with King Alfred. King Alfred is also believed to have made translations. Boethius's Consolation of Philosophy, Orosius's History of the World. Have you heard of that? Pope Gregory, you might have heard. Pope Gregory's Pastoral Rule or Pastoral Care. These are all books translated by Alfred. I forgot to mention another king. You must be wondering about that king right now. King Arthur. Why I did not mention him is because he is not Anglo-Saxon. It is not that I forgot. I wanted to tell you that King Arthur is not an Anglo-Saxon king. He is actually a Celtic king who fought against the Saxons. King Arthur also has a lot of legends associated with him. Arthurian legends. The story of Arthur and his wife Guinevere, Guinevere's love with Launcelot, the love story of Tristan and Isolde, the quest for the Holy Grail, all are part of Arthurian legends. And the Arthurian legends were all written by actually French people, mostly in the 12th century, medieval periods. Arthurian legends were written by Chrétien de Troyes. You might know Thomas Mallory's Morte d'Arthur, means death of Arthur. That is actually Middle English. And then in the Anglo-Saxon period, there are elegies. Elegy originally means a passionate poem, and there are 7 major elegies in the Anglo-Saxon period. Dior, Wolf and Eadweiser. Then the wife's lament, the husband's message, the ruin, the wanderer, the seafarer. You know how I remember like this? Because I have my own little codes. You should all have codes, okay? To remember useful information, so that when you speak like this, you will be able to remember the code, and using the code, you will be able to recollect. You'll really sound like a scholar then. So I was using a little code. Dior, Wolf and Eadweiser, that I know. Then wife is lamenting. Then immediately husband will give a message. When husband is unnecessarily advising wife, then there is ruin. Wanderer, husband becomes wanderer, and then after that he becomes seafarer. Sexist story, but useful to remember. I'm just sharing my secrets with you. So that is about the Old English period or Anglo-Saxon period. The Anglo-Saxon period ended with the Norman conquest. The Norman conquest, 1066 AD. 11th century. In the Norman conquest, William the Conqueror of Normandy came and defeated the Anglo-Saxons and established the Middle English period. He didn't really establish, that is the beginning of the Middle English period. The Middle English period was a time of great injustices and oppression, ignorance. Because the Catholic Church and the aristocracy were very powerful. They were controlling the people, denying the people opportunities of life, no luxury, nothing. People had to suffer. But the Catholic Church also did a wonderful thing. It recorded all the great texts in the monasteries. translations of manuscripts, etc. And towards the end of the medieval period, things changed. There was a 100 Years' War with France, which stopped the French influence. English people began to turn to themselves, their own history, their own language. English literature proper began. Renaissance began at the end of the Middle Ages. There was the Black Death in 1348. Bubonic plague that killed hundreds of people, thousands of people. This led to a lot of social unrest and turmoil, but after the Black Death settled down, everything changed for the better. There was a peasants' revolt in 1381 that gave some more freedom and centrality to ordinary people. Before that, the ordinary people were like animals. And at the end of the Middle Ages, finally, all the troubles ended and Renaissance dawned. The Renaissance began with writers like Geoffrey Chaucer. In the medieval period in Europe, there were great masters like Dante, Petrarch, Boccaccio. Dante, the writer of Divine Comedy. Petrarch, the man who perfected the sonnets. Dante was the first practitioner of the sonnets. And Boccaccio, the first major prose writer in in any European language. Boccaccio wrote Decameron and other works that influenced Chaucer. They are the fountains of medieval literature. So, this is an introduction up to Chaucer. The next video that we will watch will be on Geoffrey Chaucer. Please read extra. Please let me know if you have any doubts. You can post in the comment section. Talk to me. If you have any doubts, if you need any explanation, I can always put a video explaining those things separately. Alright guys, be in touch. Happy reading, happy studying. Until the next video, bye-bye.